If you go boredom, it's always never the hell.
It seems like it would be complicated. Right.
I think something common. People always do that. There's like three. So numbers of corresponding languages. Oh shit! That's right. I think it's really funny.
All right, everyone. Clapping thing.
Presentation. Bruce, please.
Excited.
Are we all excited? We're going to learn how to work together without killing each other. That used to be an explicit subtitle, and I actually am not sure why we removed it. I think maybe we didn't want to put ideas into your head. Nobody, I should say, has ever died during the course of senior phase. All right, so how do we work together? Oh, here it is, without killing each other. To answer that question, let's first ask, why is it hard to work with each other sometimes? Sometimes it's just joyful. We don't care about those times. Yeah.
Expectations. Like everyone has different expectations.
Yeah. Oh, I just realized. Could we put monitors down? Is that a? I don't know if that makes it much easier to see. Do people care? I was just reminded because I can't see your face. Hi.
We can tell. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, so I'm still Sarah. Yay. Sorry, I'm still learning everyone's names. Yeah, so we all have different expectations about everything, really, like what thing we're making, how we communicate about what we're making, and those expectation mismatches can cause conflict. Yeah. What else?
My name's Noelle.
No.
Communication. I just totally lost it.
That seems appropriate somehow.
Communication styles between people.
Yeah. I might really want to have my feelings heard, and that might annoy everyone around me who just wants to like talk about like the solutions to the problem. Other thoughts? Yeah.
Many chefs in one kitchen, different ways to do the same thing.
Yeah. So if we all have a different idea on how to accomplish something, and they are mutually exclusive, then one of us is going to be unhappy to the degree that we are wedded to that idea. And we might become bitter about it and might keep bringing it up throughout the course of the project. Not that I've ever done that. What else? Okay, cool. Those are great bedrock problems that groups can exhibit. You will probably get to experience just little tastes, nothing too much, just like a little bit of each of those during your time here, which will hopefully serve not so much as poison, but rather as a vaccine so that you can learn how to work through those issues. And now we have some scenarios. So, yeah, come on up. I have conscripted lovely fellows too. So should I? I'm not going to introduce this at all. Yeah, they're pairing now.
Yes. I'll drive. So I remember how to do this. You don't recall? It's like in the routes we would put that thing, and it would come before all the other routes. It would help us like see what our problems were, and we could read out.
You know what you're doing.
I
can't understand.
I understand how to do it. I remember. But just give me a second. I'll try to figure it out. It was a library that we would import for the routes. We did it in all the projects.
Right now.
We did it in all the projects. You don't remember? It was like one of the basics. That's one of the basics, man.
I think we're good.
Right. Yeah. So what's going on here?
Alex just quit on him.
Wow. Wait. Say more.
I know. I was sort of thinking about Alex. I know that they were trying to display, lack of communication and somebody not willing to go search for something and sort of like a difficulty in dialogue. But there's also difficulty, which is when it does get difficult when somebody just checks out.
Yeah. No. But that's really true, right? Alex did do some sort of active listening, or like stating his feelings, like I feel frustrated, and then nothing. It's just like I don't know what to do here. Yeah. What else? Or how would you deal with that? How would you deal with this situation like that? Here's the scenario they were enacting for you.
Go to quarantine.
That's actually not a bad idea. Okay, so maybe you're feeling inebriated, so drink. Or get some time away from the keyboard. That can be incredibly helpful. Like the moment you are away from it all, you remember that the word you were searching for is middleware. Yeah.
Yeah, the person who's trying to articulate probably Google what you're looking for.
Yeah, like do some research together and figure out like what exactly it is. Or in the context of this program, there's probably a workshop where you could go like look for the pattern. Yeah.
The person who is currently driving and is having problems understanding and sort of see that driving role for that instance, and let the other person tell them what they're trying to communicate.
Yeah, like maybe the code is there, but the words aren't. So just stop driving for that second. Yeah, cool. So these are all suggestions that we are offering. So the route here, and they did this well actually, is to like be upfront when you don't understand. So like say like I'm really not sure what you're getting at, but then also don't tap out, or I shouldn't say don't tap out. Like tap out when you have to and go to Clarnies. But then try not to tap out, at 10 a.m. Therefore, because that's inappropriate. And try and switch mediums, right? So if you're having trouble describing it, maybe you drive to like explain it in code, or maybe you diagram it out. Maybe you like go and do research and find an example of this. But basically, like find something that can help support your the idea you're trying to get across, and that's a collaborative thing, right? Like you're both trying to find this idea that someone like kind of sees off in the darkness, but doesn't have enough light to fully illuminate on their own. Okay, cool. Any questions? Let's go to the next scenario, which doesn't have a syntax, so we'll just be here.
So we want to have a car, right? We want to have a card.
Yeah.
The person's not logged in.
Yeah, you got the authenticated part then, right?
No, not yet. I didn't get a chance to start it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to just do that in non-authenticated
Yeah.
version too?
Yeah,
I think
so
so.
we can-
10 minutes maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll get on that.
Okay, cool.
Awesome.
Next day.
The next day. So, how's that card going?
To be honest, I didn't even get it. Like, spent the entire day on it, and it's not working.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah, we really thought that would be easy.
Yeah. I apologize.
All right. So, what should happen here? Probably stand-up shouldn't end right there, but what? First of all, is this going to happen? This is definitely 100% going to happen. You will do it to someone else, someone will do it to you, you will do it to yourself. I do this to myself all the time. so then how do you recover from that?
Offer request assistance.
Yeah, so struggling all day on a problem is not ideal. Especially, like, if your teammates said it would take 5 minutes, you should probably go to them and be like, yo, this has taken, like, literally 10 times longer, so we should pair on it, right? Like, maybe they have an idea of why it should just take 5 minutes, or maybe they don't, and you're both going to die on the hill together. And that's fine. That's fine. Like, you have to get the code out, and sometimes things, especially early in your career, sometimes things are going to take a lot longer than you think. How would you feel if you delivered that assessment? Like, if you were like, this will only take 10 minutes, and someone comes to you having not slept. And it's like, it didn't take 5 minutes, man. It just didn't. Everyone's like, I feel fine. What do you want? Like, that happens.
I feel like a douchebag because no, because the reason why the person didn't come to you was because they just feel stupid, like a little further than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, for you, it might be somebody else that does it, and they don't send it in a way that they don't feel comfortable.
Yeah.
To speak to you because they don't feel smart.
Definitely. And the flip side of that, of course, is to recognize that when someone says it should be fast, they might be wrong. They might be the idiot here. Not that anyone's actually an idiot, but they they might be mistaken in their impression, and so seeking them out and not struggling in silence is probably a good antidote. But then also being careful about like stating things with like a high degree of certainty, in such a way that your teammates will like feel dumb if they don't get it immediately. There was also something that kind of happened at startup where like we both sort of said, oh yeah, you should do that, right? Like he wasn't like, oh yeah, I really want to get this done. So we kind of like voluntold him to go and like do this this like quixotic quest, and that ended up taking an enormous amount of time. So it's like even worse than just like he plucked this story off of the queue. And these are we hit on all of the major takeaways, right? You shouldn't suffer in silence. Time estimation is the hardest part of programming, and needing more time than is expected doesn't necessarily say much about your skill. Things take me more time than I think they'll take, like, all the time. Wow. Okay. Maybe if I just guessed higher. But I can never guess high enough. It's impossible. It's, like, literally impossible. Okay. We have one more scenario for y'all. There's two more? What?
No, sorry.
What should we do about this database issue?
Yeah, I mean, I think, so it's like when we search for a tag, I mean, maybe we shouldn't store tags that we're sorting.
But like, I kind of already got it.
Yeah, I
Like,
know.
That'll take a lot of time.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. So we just go with it.
Okay.
Do you have any ideas, Mike?
I was thinking like maybe we could use a table or
Oh, yeah,
something.
change the tag though?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a really cool idea, actually.
Pretty original with my ideas.
Awesome.
Yeah, great idea.
What do you think? Good?
Great, yeah.
Glad we're all on
Definitely do
board.
that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks for being on
Do it.
Okay. What's going on here?
Mike just recommend doing the same thing you
Yeah, I maybe hadn't finished recommending it, but that's definitely like. No, it's
Doing
cool.
our role, so we were just like shutting down everything we said.
That's cool. That's
That
cool.
smells like sexism to me.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah.
Just saying.
No, and that's definitely something that's happening, right? Whatever, like, even amongst people with the best of intentions, because of how we've learned to pick up on patterns and because of like who we've learned to listen to, those things are going to come up. So what needs to happen? Oh, here's the scenario. So what can happen to correct that? Because I leave that scenario feeling like, right? Like I would find it very hard to say like that was actually my idea, even though I think there's like a strong argument that I should do that. But how can we help heal that situation?
I think like in general, like if someone's speaking, let them finish. And if they've suggested an idea, even if you don't agree, at least like acknowledge that it happened and be like, let's think about that like later. First, like just acknowledge that somebody like had an idea.
Yeah.
And if you're the person, like just make sure you actually heard it and you can like summarize it in your brain.
Yeah, that's really good. And then like even if we don't do something, earmarking, sort of attributing it at first, and then some of these, like calling out some of these things, are easier for bystanders to do. Which in this case, they're like sort of weren't really bystanders, but if there were a fourth team member, which usually there will be, you can like someone can sort of notice that happen and be like, oh hey, actually, I think Ashi said this, or like was about to say something like that, and like, we should just acknowledge that. Yeah.
Also, like, as I guess, like to acknowledge the fact that you had an idea, or recommended something, and like be the bigger person and step up and say, hey, I
Yeah.
think we should do this, and yeah, it's
Yeah.
similar to what you said.
It's like
I've even had that experience working with some people here, like if I recommended something and then they didn't do it, like, oh sorry, like I don't think this is your idea. This stuff happens all the time.
yeah, and it feels just a lot better if at least there's a bit of like, oh yeah, you were right about this, or actually, I now having looked into this, I think that's a good idea. Yeah. Yeah, so these are the main takeaways. Of course, unconscious bias is going to pop up. Women tend overall to be ignored more in settings where we're in the minority. So try and, as a bystander or as a woman, like try to amplify the voices of women, and for everyone, like take note of like when, like who is making contributions, even if they're not like avenues you follow immediately. Yeah.
Yeah, I also think, I mean, outside of just, what you mentioned about women, like people that are not very confident, so like their idea might come across as like they're not for it, but, to also just recognize that versus someone that's like, I have this great idea, let's do this, versus someone's like, I have this good idea.
Yeah, and that's a great lead-in what we're about to talk about, which is if we sort of make that a practice, that when someone suggests something, whether they suggest it like very loudly or kind of quietly, we in some way acknowledge it. Like it's like in Slack, or we like take note of it in a team document. Then we're less likely to encounter these issues, and we'll be able to correct from them more easily. So a big something that's like very useful for improving team dynamics is to establish a set of norms. So to normalize certain communication behaviors, because this gets us on the same page. We now know what to expect from our teammates in terms of communication and conflict resolution. So we're about to have you write norms for your Grace Shopper teams. Here are some starting norms. I'm going to put these slides in your repo, so you don't have to like memorize them all now. But they mostly pertain to ensuring some degree of equality of airtime. So people's voices get heard regardless of how assertively they present themselves. Tracking communication, so like when there are problems in the code, writing GitHub issues for them, because then we don't like leave a lot of loose ends, and two, we can sort of track people's, that's another way of tracking people's contributions. Asking for help, maintaining sort of code hygiene, and maintaining lines of communication. So mentioning when things are taking longer or when you need help, and basically agreeing that you're going to disagree and how to process the feelings that can come from that without exploding, which happens, but hopefully not here. Okay, so next up, we're going to have you create a team contract, which will kind of look like that, just sort of expectations around those areas. We have a base team contract that will be an actual hyperlink when I submit this slide. And for your team, you'll want to answer the questions in that link there. So any questions? Okay, sweet. I will push these slides up. You have, is it an hour to work on this? And then we will start talking about Grace Chopper.